OECD countries is 13. The average for Italy is 11.2. Different countries participated to the survey in 2017 and 2020. Among the European countries, there are Germany, Italy, Austria, and Portugal. When we compare the data of different countries, we must be prudent. Why? Because the survey is not fully harmonized. For example, some countries like Italy, we do interviews that are held face-to-face. So there is a person, and the person answers the questions, and there is a statistician that registers the questions. In other countries, the survey is carried out in a different way. Many countries use internet, web. This means that more educated people are selected, and there is also the risk that individuals may use external sources to answer the questions. Okay, this is the situation for Italy. From 2017 to 2020, we improved our knowledge, we worsened the behavior, while the attitude remained constant, didn't change. Financial skills, financial literacy is different for different segments of the population, and there are changes of financial skills according to education, gender, and age. As far as education is concerned, graduates score better. You may find this conclusion trivial, but I mean, it's important to underline. So people with a university degree got a score that is higher than people with a high school diploma, and of course there are other people without even the high school diploma that have a score that is lower. This is true both in 2017 and in 2020. Gender, men's financial literacy is higher than women's, and Cristiana will discuss in depth the issue. Age, financial skills increase until the age of 45, then they decrease, and of course this data might reflect the fact that the lower level, that the older population has a lower level of education. So, if we try to answer the question, why does Italy score poorly in financial literacy? A first tentative answer is that Italians have a lower level of education. This is the percentage of graduates in the population from 15 years until 64. Probably we had to write 21st, because I mean there are no graduates when you are 15 years old. But I mean the statistics would not change, and so I mean there are more graduates in the average of the EU 27 countries than in Italy. And Italy has also an older population than other countries. This is the percentage of population over 60, and this is the histogram for Italy. 29% of the population is older than 60 years old, and the percentages are much lower in the other countries. Okay, there are also positive news. Italians are aware of their limits. There is a question in the survey on the self-assessment of financial knowledge, and around 50% of Italians say that their own level of financial knowledge is below the average. The average for the OECD countries is around 20%. So we are less prone than other people to fall into the Dunning-Kruger bias. Dunning and Kruger, they are two scholars. They wrote this article in 1999, 20 years ago, and they found that poor performance in certain domains tend to overestimate their abilities. I mean, you can also find this conclusion trivial if you speak with Italian men, they always say that when they play soccer, they are better than Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi, but of course this is not true. Okay, I will conclude. In the last IACOFI is the terrible acronym for our survey on financial literacy. We score 11.2. We still rank poorly. We increased knowledge. The behavior had a small decrease, while the attitude remained constant. We must take into account variables like education, gender, and age when we speak about financial literacy. Italians are aware of their limitations, so I mean we are conscious that the fact that our financial literacy is not very high. We would like to improve our analysis, and the OECD in the following months should disseminate the individual data of the other countries. Of course, also the Bank of Italy will disseminate the data. Unfortunately, some countries will not disseminate the individual data. This is my last slide. When we speak about financial literacy and when we discuss behaviors, attitudes, and knowledge, we must always remember that in Italy, the Great Recession from 2007 to 2013 has been worse than the Great Depression that started in more or less 1929 and ended in 1936. In the other countries, the situation is different. I mean, Italy probably, only Italy and Greece had a Great Recession that was worse than the Great Depression. In 2019, the Italian GDP was still smaller than in 2007, and probably only Greece is in the same situation. Perhaps, I mean, I don't want to speak about the coronavirus because the interviews took place in January and February, and we know that the recession that we are observing now will be certainly worse than the Great Recession that we had in the previous years. But perhaps, I mean, in these years, Italians are reluctant to answer questions about setting long-term goals and creating family budgets. There is a methodological discussion in the OECD, between the OECD countries, because the survey attributes different scores to the different components. And at the moment, there is a high weight placed on behavior, and that perhaps is the most arbitrary attribute. For example, France chose to work only on the knowledge questions. They were very extreme, the French friends. They said, we don't like the behavior questions, we don't like the attitude questions, we answer only the knowledge questions. So, I mean, there is space to improve the measurement, the statistical measurement of financial literacy, and we are very, very glad to have this possibility to discuss these issues with friends working in the academics. I give the floor to Cristiano. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Riccardo. Thank you so much also for respecting the timing. But before giving the floor to Cristiana, I would like to ask Giulia to interact with the students just to be sure that everything is fine with them. In any case, we are recording this seminar.
Thank you so much, Marcella. We are now in our room for the Gender Economics course. I saw most of the students of the Gender Economics course and also of the other course about financial systems, and they are all welcome. There should be some other students from the Gender Economics course from the Global Humanities Studies that should come after, I think, I mean, they should have another lessons that it ends in few minutes, so maybe they will arrive. So thank you very much, Riccardo. With all the students, we already saw the statistics for the wave of 2017, and so the students are aware of this data. But thank you for showing us the preview of the new wave of the financial literacy data. And for me, it's all, and we can continue, and we will have other interventions. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Giulia. So, Riccardo, I think you have to stop your presentation, otherwise Cristiana cannot start hers. You just have to leave the presentation mode so that Cristiana can take your place and show her slides.
Okay.
Not yet.
Fine presentazione.
And now?
No, it's still on. Yes, now it's fine. Thank you. Great.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Cristiana Rampazzi will continue to discuss with you the Bank of Italy data, and after this first two presentations, we will have time for question and answers before moving to another topic. Please, Cristiana, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. Let me thank our host for inviting us. It's a pleasure to take part in this interesting webinar. So it's up to me to show our survey data through a gender lens. So let's go to the first slide, and here I want to show you an international comparison. So you can see that the gap in financial literacy is spread across countries. And as you can see, the gender gap in Italy is large, and we have just few countries in which the gender gap is in favor of male. And the stars that you can see indicate that the difference is statistically significant. So from now on, I will concentrate, I will refer to Italian data only. And now we have the data that Riccardo showed you by gender. And we can see that the slight increase that we have in 2020 refers to men only. And whereas the difference for women is not statistically significant, and so the women's score on average is the same they reached 3 years before. Let's move on to the next slide, and here you can see the gender gap by gender and by age. And as you can see, the gender gap is higher among young and elderly people. And these are two groups in which the score is particularly low. And that's why for Banca d'Italia and for all people who promoting financial education, young and elderly people are fragile groups. And but if you see the data, you can see that to be a woman in these groups means to be more vulnerable than men. So Here you can see the gender gap in the three components of the total score, and you can observe that the first component, financial knowledge, in this component the gender gap is larger and is statistically significant, while in the second component, financial behavior, the difference is less evident and is absent in the third aspect, the attitude, the financial attitude. So I'm going to draw your attention to the financial knowledge. That is the most critical area, and it's also the aspect that is measured the most accurately by the OECD methodology. And now we can look at the gender gap in financial knowledge, and the data are broken down by educational levels. So the gender gap is particularly large among less educated people. Even if it's common among all educational levels. And I can add that education is an important variable, because in regression analysis, the level of education is usually a variable with the highest explanatory power. So, move to the other slide, and we can see data by geographical area, and the gender gap is remarkable in the South and Islands. Here we can notice, we can see the same data by working status, and you can observe that self-employed among women reach a higher score. And self-employed include entrepreneurs and professionals, while the score for students and for housewives and retired is lower. And these two groups, housewives and pensioners, are also bigger in number. So let's analyze another aspect that for us is important, is the self-assessment. That's why we try to understand what is the approach, women approach to the financial topics, to the financial matters. So if the self-assessment, here we can see the self-assessment, and we see that women have a lower estimation of themselves. And if we compare the self-assessment to the real score, I mean the measure score, we find out that male are more frequently overconfident, and even if this is a phenomenon that has decreased in the second wave, and that is low if we compare this data, Italian data, to other countries' data. And whereas the problem for women is not overconfidence, but is underconfidence, and so we see the high percentage of women who underestimate their knowledge. So now I just want to add some information and to show you another survey this is not a Banca d'Italia survey, but is a survey carried out by DOXA for National Financial Education Committee. At Banca d'Italia, we collaborate with to the committee, and I worked also on this data and on this survey. And I want to show you that this survey allows to find a link from the economic impact of COVID on households to the financial level. Financial knowledge level. So you can find many evidence in a report that you can find on the official site website of the committee, and you can find evidence by gender, but you can go on and study and use this data for further analysis, and it's my suggestion to use Banca d'Italia data and also the committee data. And so we just analyzed some information, and here I can say that we are still looking for determinants, and you can see the some sentence, some Lusardi, Professor Lusardi point she expressed in 2018, and she said that we can exclude the educational system as responsible for the gender gap. And we can also observe that in some countries, gender differences are present in early life. And this is particularly true in Italy for 15 years old students. And both these points are confirmed by the new data, newest data. So we are still looking, and we should go on looking in the family, and maybe exploring confidence, gender roles, and all kind of gender stereotypes. So, take home. Just summing up, there is a large gender gap in financial literacy and financial knowledge in Italy as in many other countries. Which are the most vulnerable groups? They are young and elderly women with a low level of education located in the south, and who are either housewives or pensioners. We found out that women are less confident than men, and that the knowledge, even when the knowledge is above the national average. So I can say that you have a lot of interesting data to look at. So we look forward to reading your future research. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Cristiana. Thank you. Thank you also for really respecting the timing. We absolutely recovered the short delay at the beginning. In the meantime, as you can hear from the ding dong, there are lots of students that are joining us. So I would like to know whether Giulia wants to make a summing up for her students that have just joined, in order to allow them to understand a little bit better what's going on. Otherwise, Giulia, it's up to you. It's your class, so please decide.
Yes, of course, please. Just few words. I mean, we just started, but you can find all the recording of the lessons of the seminar by the beginning on Moodle in few days, and so don't worry. I mean, you will have a lot of discussion after. So welcome to all the students that are coming also right now, and please join the second section of this seminar. And of course, for the students of Economia dei Mercati Finanziari, if you have any questions, feel free to write in Italian, and we will answer in English. And of course, to all the other students and members, free to ask anything that you want.
Thank you, Julia. As far as I can see, there are no questions for the moment. Maybe they are a little bit shy, especially the one who usually attend the class in Italian, and probably the foreigner are just arriving. So just to make it clear what's going on, in the first part of this event, we have presented a very important data set, the one belonging to the Bank of Italy, to our central bank, who is officially involved in collecting data also in the OECD scheme and framework. So thanks to our colleagues, you had the opportunity and the possibility to understand what sort of data are actually available also for your own research, also for your own studies. Don't be shy. If you have any curiosity, ask about them. They are a very important source of information, and as already Cristiana said, there is a large room of maneuver also for young researchers and students to implement new ideas, new tests, and of course our students from the Department of Statistics are in a better position to do that. Of course, working with data is not just a matter of having sources available. It's not just a matter of knowing the right people to ask this data to or for. Is also, and especially for our students, a problem of the methodology to be used in order to use this data. That's why now I will give the floor once again to Giulia Zacchia, but this time not as your teacher, but as a researcher in this field, because she will present to you a specific methodology that might be of special interest for also in the future, also in other courses, since we even have a laboratory run by Susanna Levantesi on this type of methodology, and the methodology which I refer to is the machine learning. So have a look at what Giulia Zacchia and Susanna Levantesi did with Bank of Italy data. Not the recent one, the one that you have been learning about thanks to the presentation of Riccardo and Cristiana, but of course the previous waves of this data. And if you are interested, once again, not only in the source of data, but also in the methodology, feel free to make yourself up and ask questions in the chat. And don't forget, we have a laboratory on machine learning available for you. So Giulia, unfortunately Susanna cannot be with us, but Giulia is representing both of them. The floor is yours,
Thank you very
Giulia.
much, Marcella, for this introduction, and hope you can see also the slide that I share.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much. As you already told us, I mean, the data are important, but I will introduce a new concept, and so how we can manage and we can analyze this data. And in particular, if in this case machine learning can help us to better understand the phenomenon of financial literacy. Just in the context where we are, and let me clarify that it's even more important in the wake of COVID-19 to have a better understanding of the intersectional levels of financial literacy and financial behavior. Why? Because this is a survey, a fresh new survey from Eurostat that is called Living, Working and COVID-19. And what emerged from these data that, it was an e-survey launched in July 2020, so during the lockdowns and in April 2020, during the lockdowns and after the lockdowns in July 2020. But what emerged is that the financial fragility is increasing. The 44% of responders says that their household had difficulties of making ends meet, and the share of women that answered that has more difficulties in that days increase as well, and is even higher, is the 47%. And moreover, the 50% of responses say that they are not able to get by on saving for more than 3 months. And actually, not to be depressing, but the situation will get worse in the next months because, as you can see here, and it's clear from this graph that shows all the European countries, the share of responders that say that their financial situation will get worse in the next 3 months. It's huge. It's almost 30%. Even if there are sensitive differences among the countries, but the situation is critical for all the European countries. So actually, it's crucial, and it's really important also in the recovery strategy to implement the existing and innovative tailored approaches that could include the financial awareness and financial education to promote the financial well-being, and also the economic and social inclusion of all citizens. And in this case, I'm speaking about Europeans, but it's a global crisis and a global pandemic events, and we all know. And so it's all important, of course, to improve the understanding and try to understand all the determinants of financial literacy with all the data available. Why? Because we need to know which is the target of our policies and who we should prioritize in our policies. So that's why me and Susanna Levantesi, that she is the real expert of these machine learning methods, decided to investigate the ability of machine learning methods to try to identify the determinants of financial literacy and compare their accuracy with methods and estimations that use parametric models. So we use the data that the colleague presented about financial literacy of Banca of Italy, of course, the 2017 wave, because the new one is not even available and should be available, I think, in few months or a few days. Actually, I don't know which is the timeline. But we try to test with this data, so the data about financial literacy of Italian adults of 2017, if 3 base machine learning methods, and in particular the decision tree, the random forest, and the gradient boosting techniques tend to outperform the conventional parametric alternatives, and if they can provide some results that can be easy to interpret. So actually we compare a logistic regression model, so a parametric model, with a machine learning model to identify their precision accuracy and which is the differences in the main determinants of financial literacy. So which are the characteristics that have an impact on the level of financial literacy. So there are, of course, pros and cons to use the machine learning techniques. The main pros are that they have a high flexibility in learning from data, so you don't have to postulate any functional forms. So you just put all the information that you have in this, let's say, machine. And they also have another pro that is that they have a high predictive performance. Of course, there are some contrasts for the use of these machine learning techniques that they have a high risk of overfitting, and most of all, the results sometimes are really difficult to interpret, and that's why, I mean, sometimes there is the definition of machine learning techniques as black boxes. We use different methodology in the machine learning, so the different techniques, because, I mean, there are also some differences in the use of these different techniques. First of all, I mean, we use the decision tree methods because it's really the easier to interpret and used to capture the correlation in data more than other machine learning methods. But unfortunately, they lack of robustness, and that's why, I mean, we try to introduce and to test also some more sophisticated techniques that are, for example, the random forest that consists in integrating many decision trees that are obtained by bootstrapping the training samples, and we also tested how to perform the gradient boosting machine. This is also a tree-based algorithm, but where, I mean, each decision tree uses the information from the previous decision tree. This is in the logic to improve the fit of the model. So we apply these three machine learning methods with the parametric, so the product one, to the data of Bank of Italy. So we want to define which are the determinants of financial literacy, and we define financial literate, the responders that correctly answers to at least 4 questions of the 7 questions about financial knowledge that the colleague showed us before. This is, I mean, something that it's not correlated with the OECD definition, but I mean, it means that they know more than the average of Italian adults, because the average score for Italian adults in financial literacy is 3.5. It was, I mean, these were the data of 2017. We also control for personal observable characteristics such as the sex, the age, education, that they already show how important they are. But also we introduce the household composition, the employment and migrant status, and the geographic macroeconomic area of Italy. We also try to define some proxy of the income level, because they are not the level of income in the survey. Uses some proxy of the household economic stress and risk capacity. If you are interested, I can share with you also which are the questions that we use in this sense. We also put inside the model also the level of financial behavior and financial attitudes, so the other dimensions that are considered in the OECD records of financial knowledge, of financial literacy, and the propensity for pension planning and the use of pension products. We also analyze the self-assessment of financial knowledge. And what we found, we try to, see and measure the overall performance of machine learning algorithms, and we try, to compute the model's accuracy for both the machine learning algorithm and the logistic regression models. And for these reasons, we used and we calculated the ROC curve that show how sensitivity and specificity vary with different thresholds values. And we also calculated the area under the curve, under the ROC curve. And so, actually, the higher level of the area under the curve means that and declare the best model to fit the data. And as you can see, the best model to analyze and for the accuracy of the data that we analyze is the gradient boosting machine. But all the other methods do outperform the traditional logistics models. So there are, models that fits the data. We try also to identify and to calculate the so-called variable importance measure, so to verify which are the elements, the variables that are most important for using the machine learning techniques. And actually we can say that the machine learning techniques produce reliable information consistent with the literature, since financial literacy, once more, is something that they already show us with the descriptives, with the last data, but financial literacy is really correlated with age, education, household health, so some measure that can proxy the income of the family, of the household, but something that is different from the parametric models. The machine learning models try to highlight the importance of financial behavior, so the ability of people to formulate their budget, to pay debts in time. And this underlines the relevance of experience in the acquisition of financial literacy and financial knowledge, something that actually is really important. Unfortunately, this data, these methods and the machine learning and our results do not identify any causal relationship between financial knowledge and financial behavior, but we can, for example, speculate that the causation runs in both directions. So actually, it's important, and it's important strategy to consider and to have this learning by doing strategy in increasing financial knowledge of citizens. What we can conclude with our analysis is that we believe that machine learning can be used as a complement of standard methods to understand the heterogeneity and the commonalities across different subpopulations in financial literacy, because we have to know the differences in this process. And there is also something that is really important for the use of machine learning techniques, is that they can analyze really complex data and they can compute huge amount of information at the same time. So actually it could be used also in a logic of using big data in the definition of the process of financial literacy and to understand better the different dimensions. However, what is missing and what is should be done is an advancement in the data collection and the availability of individual information on financial behavior, attitude, and knowledge. So we should know most and more about these processes, and we should have really more data, more in-depth individual data. I just conclude with some critical elements that are available in financial literacy that could open the floor for the discussion. And my major critics to the definition of financial literacy is the definition that has been done in the OECD and run by Banca in their data on a gender perspective may mainly apply to three different fields. First of all, the answer don't know. And then there should be voiced in all the survey, because we know that there is a gender gap in the use of these questions. And so actually, we should avoid to have this don't know answer in the possibility to choose in the answers. The unit of analysis. So actually what is done is that there is a randomized selection of the responders inside each household, and we should try to consider all individuals inside the household, because gender roles also inside the household can influence the level of financial literacy and the gaps inside the household. So it's crucial to have individual data and for all the people and for all the members of the household. Other dimension that is completely missing in the questionnaire that are run about financial literacy are the barrier to the access. We all know that there are intangible barriers to the participation in financial markets, and women are a great part of these barriers and face these barriers. So maybe we should introduce also some kind of question about the barriers that they had and the problems that they have to participate actively in the financial markets. And finally, this is in the scope of the survey, and a big trade-off that there is when we think about financial literacy is that, the final definition of financial literacy. So, do we need financial literacy and more financial literate people and citizens to increase the financial well-being, or it's just a matter to have more financial products clients? So I will leave the floor to Giulia Porino for these questions and for all the other dimensions, because I really know that she will give us a great insight from the part of citizens and not clients. Thank you so much. And these are our mail, and you should know my mail of the students, but this is the mail of Susanna Levantesi, that she is the real expert about machine learning techniques, and she used them for the insurance